Today's hunter reflects an American tradition that combines resource management and a deep and personal respect for wildlife. America's modern hunters have long been in the forefront of the conservation movement, contributing time, talent, and money to ensure a healthy future for our nation's wildlife. Goose hunters in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington have a unique opportunity to continue that proud conservation tradition by assisting fish and wildlife agencies in efforts to protect certain types of geese. Over the years, the Lower Columbia River and Willamette Valley have become an important wintering ground for many thousands of Canada geese. However, not all populations are healthy, and some need protection. This program is designed to help educate you and fellow hunters and allow you to continue to enjoy our waterfowling tradition while protecting those types of Canada geese that are in trouble. Please review these materials before and during the hunting season. Spend time afield before hunting season to practice applying what you have learned. If there is ever a doubt about which type of Canada goose is coming into your decoy spread, don't shoot. Practice restraint today so that all of us may continue to hunt another day. The future of goose hunting is literally in your hands, and your actions reflect on the entire hunting community. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service wish to thank you for doing your part to carry on the fine American tradition of hunting. Today, farmers, waterfowl hunters, and wildlife managers in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington face a problem for which there is no easy solution. Several factors have combined to create almost unresolvable difficulties. Among them are abundant Canada geese, which depredate on agricultural croplands during winter and spring months. Several subspecies of Canada geese within the wintering population, which require special protection and management efforts to help them recover. And the difficulty of distinguishing one subspecies of Canada goose from another. There are 7 subspecies of Canada geese which winter in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington. Those subspecies include the Aleutian, Cackler, Dusky, Lesser, Taverners, Vancouver, and Western. Unfortunately, to many inexperienced goose hunters, all Canada goose subspecies look alike. Let's see how we can distinguish one goose from another. This is the smallest of our geese, only about the size of a mallard. The cackler has a short neck, a stubby bill, and a puffy head. Because of its smaller size, the cackler has a faster wing beat in comparison to larger geese. Birds are generally dark in color, but young birds are lighter in color. This subspecies is not very wary, but does fly in large flocks. The high-pitched yelping or cackling call is distinctive and useful for identification in the field. The bill length is under 32 millimeters. Some birds have yellow neck collars. The Aleutian is a small goose with a sharply sloped forehead and usually has a dark breast color. A conspicuous broad white neck ring completely encircles the lower neck. Some birds have colored leg band. Taverners Canada geese are generally smaller than dusky geese, with a 20 to 30% weight difference between the two subspecies. The Taverners goose is substantially smaller than the Western or Vancouver subspecies. The Taverners goose is about the same size as the lesser and is larger than the cackler. Color by itself is a primary factor to look for. Although some taverners may be quite dark and some dusky geese may be relatively light in color, color is still the best indicator to distinguish between dusky and taverners' geese. Some hunters find voice differences meaningful, but others can hear no difference. Distinguishing geese by voice sounds is a learned experience. Mixed flocks of geese can make this technique even more difficult. This goose flies in large flocks, sometimes exceeding several hundred. It is wary, often circling for a considerable time before landing. This subspecies prefers large, open fields. Wing shape is helpful for many hunters. The dusky wing tends to be broader in proportion to its length, while the taverner's wing often appears narrower and longer in relation to the size of the bird. Bill length on the taverner's goose falls between 32 and 40 millimeters. The lesser Canada goose is the same size as the taverner's or slightly larger. The lesser Canada goose falls in size between the taverner's and the dusky Canada goose. The breast of the lesser is differentiated from the dusky by its much lighter coloration. The light breast coloration is similar to that of the western. The lesser Canada goose often has a more buffy cast compared to the gray of the taverners. Bill length is in the same range as the taverners, between 32 and 40 millimeters, but it may extend into the lower range of the dusky. The dusky Canada goose is the subspecies of most concern. The dusky Canada goose generally has a brown cast to body feathers, although the degree of darkness may be variable. The dusky is larger than the cackler, Aleutian, taverners, and lesser. The dusky is smaller than the Vancouver or western. The dusky wing tends to be broader in relation to its length than the taverners, which appears longer and narrower in relation to body size. Only red neck collars have been placed on duskies to monitor the populations. If a bird seems unwary, comes right into your blind, flies low, etc., be cautious. It may well be a dusky. Duskies are fairly vocal geese and generally fly in smaller flocks, usually fewer than 40. They are less wary than other Canada geese subspecies and will readily use small fields, even those ringed with brush. Bill length on the dusky falls between 40 and 50 millimeters. The Vancouver subspecies is a large bird with dark breast color. The bill length exceeds 50 millimeters. No neck collars have been used on this subspecies, and wintering numbers in Washington and Oregon are minimal. This is the largest of our 7 subspecies, with a very light breast color. It is the only goose that nests in Oregon and Washington. The wing beat of the western is relatively slow. The bill length exceeds 50 millimeters. Geese in the lower Columbia River have been marked with white-colored neck collars bearing black letter number codes. These birds tend to fly in small flocks. Other species of geese also found in our area are the white-fronted and snow goose. All 7 subspecies of geese identified earlier make up our wintering population. In recent years, record numbers of geese have wintered in northwest Oregon and southwest Washington. Prior to the 1970s, the winter goose population averaged fewer than 25,000 geese in northwest Oregon and southwest Washington. Historically, These geese were the Dusky Canada goose subspecies. The Dusky population, however, began declining about 1979, with an accelerated drop in the mid-1980s. The decline is attributed to several earthquake-related changes in Alaska nesting habitat, combined with excessive harvest in wintering areas. The following information shows some of the changes which have occurred on the breeding grounds.
My name is Dan Logan, and I'm a wildlife biologist with the U.S. Forest Service in Cordova, Alaska. And the role that the Forest Service plays in the management of Dusky Canada geese is that we're the land managers of their breeding grounds, the Copper River Delta. The Delta is about a 700,000 acre wetlands. It's home is the stopover area for migratory shorebirds. It's home for moose, brown bear, black bear, beaver, wolves, coyotes, bald eagles, and also a variety of waterfowl. One of the interesting things about the Delta is it's in a very tectonically active area, which means about every 400 years we go through an uplift, but because the Delta is fed by a series of glacial-fed streams, millions of tons of sediment are deposited on the Delta each year. So what the Delta does is it uplifts about every 400 years, and then it slowly subsides back down again and goes back into a wetland. We experienced our last uplift in about 1964. It was the Good Friday earthquake. During that, the whole Delta was uplifted about 6 to 9 feet. And what happened is what we did have, which once was tidally inundated saltwater, grass, and sedge environment, when this uplift occurred and the Delta lifted up, it drained very well, and we started to have an invasion of shrubs, of myrica gale like you see here, alder, willow, and this started moving out towards the seaward edge, and we started to have much more shrubs on the Delta as we used to. And what that did was change some of the energy budgets of the predators. Coyotes can easily move around through the shrubs, and we started to increase started to experience a very rapid predation rate on the Duskies. We're now at about a 15% nest success, where we were much higher prior to that. And it's a whole suite of predators that are causing this. It's not really just one. We're seeing avian predation from bald eagles, gulls, raptors. We're seeing mammalian predation from wolves, coyotes, brown bears, and black bears. We have over 7 species of sedge. This particular one here is Carex lingbii. This is what was composed most of the Copper River Delta. It was a lot of sedges and grasses. This is a very important food source for Duskies, also provides very good nest building material. A lot of these sedges here have been replaced by shrubs, willows, and myrica gale. The Copper River Delta is dissected by thousands of sloughs that come along, and this is what we're standing on right now as one of the slough levees. Prior to the 1964 earthquake, these slough levees were the highest areas on the Delta, and they were also one of the best nesting sites for Dusky Canada geese. And the reason so is that prior to the uplift, the Delta was influenced by spring high tides, and geese were finding the highest spot on the Delta they could find to put their nest so they could escape from their nest being flooded by the high tides. After the uplift, what you're seeing here is an invasion of willows, spruce, alder, myrica gale. So what it's done is converted what was some of the optimum nesting habitat for Duskies into these shrub areas here, of which mammalian predators can move through quite easily and predate on a lot of the Dusky nests. This area is developing at a much slower rate than what we're losing the old marsh, or what was sedge turning into shrubs. In a few more years, we'll probably see about 3,000 acres that will be developed in this new marsh area that will make eventually good Dusky Canada goose nesting habitat.
Cackling Canada geese also experienced a sharp decline throughout the Pacific Flyway. Cackler numbers dropped from an estimated 400,000 in the late 1960s to fewer than 25,000 in the mid-1980s. The decline is believed to be largely due to sport harvest in California and subsistence harvest in Alaska. The season for this subspecies was closed in 1984. In recent years, the cackler population has continued to increase at a rapid rate. In the early 1990s, for example, the cackler fall flight was estimated at over 160,000 birds, an increase which warranted a limited reopening of the cackler season in 1994. In recent years, there has been a significant increase in the proportion of the cackling geese wintering in northwest Oregon and southwest Washington, along with a proportional decrease in California. The cackling Canada geese are the most numerous subspecies wintering in our area. Beginning in the 1970s, the Taverner's goose population has increased from fewer than 2,000 to more than 60,000 wintering in northwest Oregon and southwest Washington. These geese are now a significant component of the geese wintering in this area. But again, cackling Canada goose numbers are increasing rapidly. Reasons for the increase in Taverner's geese are unknown, but may be simply due to secure breeding habitat in Alaska, combined with changing farm practices in the Willamette Valley, which create wintering habitat favorable for this subspecies. Along with the buildup of other goose populations, numbers of the resident Western Canada goose also increased steadily during the 1970s and 1980s. A much smaller proportion of the wintering flock is made up of the lesser and Vancouver Canada subspecies. Small numbers of Aleutian Canada geese winter along the Oregon coast, and a few have been observed in the lower Columbia River and Willamette Valley areas. The Aleutian Canada goose was once on the brink of extinction, and many hunting areas were closed to all Canada goose hunting. To summarize, we are now wintering more Canada geese than at any other time in recorded history. The wintering population includes 7 subspecies, which are closely related and which generally look alike. The large population of geese causes severe crop depredation problems for landowners. Hunting can be effective in controlling depredation concerns. Depredation, that is damage caused when increasingly large flocks of birds feed in fields with standing crops, is a serious problem, and landowners, too, want to ensure continued, stable hunting season to minimize crop damage and financial loss. Earlier in this video, we provided you with some useful tools to identify the 7 subspecies of Canada geese wintering in northwest Oregon and southwest Washington. The next segment was produced by Oregon State University and will focus on other good ways to distinguish 3 of the subspecies you are most likely to encounter in the field.
There are many different kinds of Canada geese wintering in the Pacific Northwest. Some have healthy populations, others do not. The ones that do not are protected by strict hunting regulations. This video will help you to correctly identify geese before you shoot. Cackling Canada geese are small, dark birds, only slightly larger than a mallard. Taverner's Canada geese are medium-sized and light-colored. Tav populations are healthy. Dusky Canada geese are large, dark-colored geese. They winter only in our area. The so-called cackler has a short, stubby neck. The Taverner has a slightly longer neck, and the Dusky has a long neck. A second way of telling the birds apart is to look at coloration, especially at the base of the neck. Cackling geese have a dark breast. Taverner's geese have a light breast that contrasts sharply with the black neck. Duskies have a dark breast, almost as dark as the neck. Another way of telling the birds apart is to look at the size of their bills. Cacklers have very short bills. Taverners have slightly longer bills, and dusky geese have long bills. Now let's look at some live birds. Notice the long necks and dark breasts of these 3 dusky geese. Here's a good side-by-side comparison. The dusky on the left has a dark neck and a dark breast. The tav on the right has a dark neck but a light breast. The lone taverner's goose in the left foreground has a much shorter neck in relation to his body than these dusky geese. It's more difficult to see the color differences in the bright sunshine, but when contrasted with this tav, the small size and stubby neck of this cackler is unmistakable. Duskies are easy to identify by their long necks and dark breasts. These taverner's geese have short necks and sharp color contrast between their necks and breasts. You can tell these are taverner's geese by their light breasts and short necks. Notice how difficult it is to see color patterns in the dark shadows. Don't be fooled by the bright sunlight. Long necks, dark breasts. Yes, these are duskies. More sunlight from a different angle and more dusky geese. This group is tougher, but you should know these. Long necks with little contrast between the neck and the breast. These are dusky geese. Look carefully. Short neck, light breast that contrasts sharply with the black neck. That's right. These are taverner's geese. In silhouette, the short neck makes tabs appear to have a long tail. Here they come, right at you. But what are they? Short neck, sharp contrast between the breast and neck. They're tabs. Here come two more. Listen to the high-pitched call. Do you hear it? The call of the cackler is distinctive and is the best way to identify cackling geese. A hunter's dream, close and sailing right over the decoys. But please don't shoot. These are dusky geese. A flock headed right at you. What are they? More duskies. Which ones are taverner's geese? Sometimes even the experts can't tell. Better call this one unidentified. You call this group. Play it safe and call them unidentified. A sneaker from behind in the sunlight. Let this Dusky go. This is a good spot. Here come two more. But listen up. These are cacklers. A pair of tricky ones in the bright sunlight. Take 'em. These are Taverner's geese. A single flyby. What are you going to do? You better call this one unidentified and pass up an easy shot. Better safe than sorry. Let these Duskies go. And let these silhouettes go too. If you use binoculars when you hunt, you'll be able to identify geese before they get too close. Avoid making snap decisions at the last instant, and don't shoot unless you're absolutely sure of your target. Practice identifying geese whenever you're in the field. The real secret to developing your skill is practice. 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 Study and review this video between hunting trips to help you fix a mental image of each of the races of geese. Good hunting, and keep your powder dry.
It's important for all goose hunters to remember that waterfowl seasons are set cooperatively among states, working under general guidelines developed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Oregon and Washington, in conjunction with other states within the Pacific Flyway, set annual waterfowl hunting seasons following guidelines prepared by the Fish and Wildlife Service. Of course, Alaskans are very interested in management programs affecting goose populations on wintering grounds. Public input is welcome during the season-setting process, but all season recommendations must meet the general guidelines set by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. In recent years, in response to these challenging conditions facing waterfowl biologists, Oregon and Washington have proposed some new, experimental approaches to goose management to provide hunting recreation, while also minimizing damage and continuing protection of species in trouble. These regulations are needed to ensure that the take of Dusky Canada geese will remain within acceptable biological limits, and that hunting will not cause the population to decline further. Again, if the Dusky population declines to critical levels, hunting will be more severely restricted or totally eliminated. Oregon and Washington wildlife managers have been working closely together for years in conjunction with landowners, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service staff, and hunters, to help fashion a consistent approach to goose management that will best satisfy a variety of competing interests. We need the continuing support of you and your fellow hunters to help ensure success. Remember that the only other alternative is a closed season for all Canada goose hunting. As mentioned during the early part of this video program, it is difficult to distinguish among geese. The truth is that there is no 100% certain way to identify all subspecies of geese when they are in the air. If there is an identity question while hunting, the only responsible action is to let the geese pass. 3 simple rules to follow for all hunters are practice, practice, practice in order to improve your goose identification skills. With practice, it becomes easier to identify species with greater precision, and it helps build your confidence. What if you're not a very experienced goose hunter? What can you do? Well, first of all, consider hunting with only experienced hunters. 2 or 3 inexperienced hunters will probably not help each other improve their goose identification skills. However, joining a skilled hunter afield will pay dividends that will help develop your skills and confidence. Also, regardless of your goose hunting experience, consider using binoculars to help in goose identification. Lighting and weather conditions such as fog or rain limit ability to clearly identify birds. Even with good eyesight, all hunters should take advantage of binoculars to get a better view. One way for experienced and inexperienced hunters alike to improve identification skills is to go to a local refuge. Spend some time in the blinds, talk to the area manager, and practice, practice, practice. Look for neck-collared birds to use as a reference. Review your training materials before, during, and after the hunting season. These course materials are one sure way for every hunter to learn more. Please take this material seriously. The future of goose hunting depends upon your cooperation. Finally, practice restraint in hunting situations. Allow birds to work your decoys and get in close, where there's a better chance to improve identification of the birds coming in. Far better to let birds break off and fly away than to mistakenly add a dusky Canada goose to your bag. Although mistakes do happen, it is your job to develop the necessary skills to distinguish birds in the air. When in doubt, don't shoot.
Too dark.
Mike, what do you think's your most important piece of equipment out here when we're hunting in Northwest Oregon to ID these geese so we don't have to take a dusky accidentally?
Right. Well, in my opinion, glasses definitely are a major part of this for us. Reason being is when we are hunting together, just like me and Joe, one of us is looking through the glasses while the other one is calling, and so we can each have one thing to concentrate on at one time. So there is no mistakes to happen there. But you know, if you're just hunting by yourself, it's very easy for a dusky to sneak in with a flock of good birds, and this just eliminates the errors. Basically, it's a necessity that everybody should have with them.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I think nothing really takes a place of spending a lot of time in the field with the birds. We're fortunate enough that we spend a lot of time out here. We look at a lot of birds off season and during the season, and Mike and I have passed up a tremendous amount of shots just because we weren't sure. When you're out here in the field for quite a length of time, you get to know the birds, how they fly, their wings. For example, on this tavener here, we have a little bit more narrow wing than like on a dusky. We have a real nice broad wing on them. That's one way to locate them. Sometimes it's hard to tell, especially in a dark day or a foggy day. One thing I like to look for too is when you get the birds close, I like to look for that real sharp contrast between this white patch and the breast. On a lot of the duskies, you have a very, very sharp contrast. I mean, it's a very visible contrast there, and usually I pass up those shots. If they blend like this, kind of blends like this, and I get a good look at the bird, I'm shooting it. He's in trouble. So that's kind of how we do it. I think, Mike, in your opinion, that nothing helps more than experience in the field, spending a lot of time learning how to hunt, learning how to call, and really scouting your bird so you can get as close as you can to get real sure, clean shots.
One thing that I prefer to do is I'm not just out here just for the shooting part of it. My goal is to get the birds in as close as I possibly can, and in order to educate everybody that we're trying to take out and help out to see which birds are good and which not. And there's a lot of times where we go out in the mornings and we pass up on few flocks in order to show the people that there were some bad birds in there, just so they do not take that chance, because all it does is you have one opportunity and you destroy it and your season's done.
Yeah, so when in doubt, don't take the shot, let it fly. There'll be more. We got lots of birds out here. There'll be more. You have your chances.
Please remember that hunting is a privilege, not a right. Waterfowl hunting is a fine American tradition, and we here in the Northwest are blessed with some of the best goose hunting opportunities anywhere in North America. If we wish to continue to enjoy goose hunting, then it is our joint responsibility, yours and mine together as concerned goose hunters, to learn and apply goose identification skills whenever we are afield. It is our job as hunters, not somebody else's. Successful hunting has different meanings for different hunters. For some, it is merely a chance to break away from the daily routine and spend a day afield. For others, it might mean an opportunity to fill a bag limit. Whatever your personal definition of successful hunting, remember that waterfowl needs come first. Our ability to provide goose hunting seasons in Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington is directly related to your skills in protecting dusky geese. Study this tape. Review your written materials. Scout before you hunt and practice identifying birds before and during the season. Hunt with experienced hunters. Use binoculars to aid in your identification skills. Visit refuges and talk to fellow hunters, landowners, and biologists. Remember to practice restraint whenever you are in doubt. We wish you good luck and a good goose hunting season.